My darling, I'm thrilled you're loving the condo I got you, Grandpa said, his voice warm as he raised his mimosa across the brunch table like it was just another cozy family gathering. The room went quiet. I paused, my orange juice catching in my throat. Every pair of eyes turned toward me. My mom's glossy lips parted, puzzled. My sister glanced up from her phone. My dad dropped his fork. It clinked sharply against the ceramic plate. My pulse thumped in my temples as the silence thickened. I looked down, wiped my hands on the napkin across my lap, then met Grandpa's gaze. "I live in a basement," I murmured. His smile wavered. "What? I never got a condo," I said, my voice clearer now. It stayed steady, controlled. I wasn't going to break down here, not after everything. A heavy quiet fell like a storm brewing. I felt it deep in my chest. "What do you mean?" Grandpa asked, his eyes blinking slowly. "Before we dive in, drop a comment below and let us know where you're from and which city you're tuning in from. After reading this whole story, share what you'd do in this situation. Be real, tell us in the comments. We read every single one. Let's get started." The room shifted. Mom reached for her coffee, her hands trembling just enough to spill a drop. My sister stopped mid-bite. Dad cleared his throat, grabbing his water like something was lodged in it. Maybe it was the truth. I scanned their faces. "You never gave me anything, Grandpa," I said again, calm but firm. "I've been in a windowless basement for 4 years. The only thing this family's given me in a decade is silence." "Hold on," Grandpa said, scooting his chair back an inch. "I sent the down payment to your dad 4 years ago. He told me he surprised you with it after you graduated." My mouth dried up. A chill crept up my spine, but I forced myself to breathe. Dad's face drained of color, pale as ash. Mom turned to him slowly. "You said you helped her find a sweet place downtown," she whispered, her voice tight. "Dad," I said, locking eyes with him. He shifted, uneasy. I was going to." "No," I cut him off. "You were going to keep it," someone gasped. Grandpa leaned back, lips tight, knuckles white against the table's edge. He looked like he'd been hit. I sat taller, my voice steady but cutting. "You told me to grind harder, to stop expecting handouts. All that time I was cleaning other people's houses while you pocketed the money meant to give me a chance." The air turned toxic, heavy, charged. It buzzed with truths no one had dared to speak. I stood, my hands still shaking, heart racing. I hadn't planned T.O. Chinese letter to say anything today. But since we're celebrating birthdays, maybe it's time we all stop pretending. I walked out. Behind me, chairs scraped back. Footsteps stumbled after me. I didn't stop. The hallway outside the restaurant was quiet, but the anger burning inside me was loud. I could still feel their stares from the table. The shock, the guilt, the unease they'd finally earned. I didn't cry, not this time. In the parking lot, I heard quick footsteps behind me. "Kayla, hold up," Grandpa called. I turned. He looked older than he had half an hour ago. His smile was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen from him in years. Raw, unguarded sorrow. "You really never got the condo?" I shook my head. "I've been renting a basement from a lady who smokes so much the walls are yellowed. The boiler's right by my bed. I pay rent in cash because she doesn't trust banks. I've eaten dinner on the floor more nights than I can count." He swallowed hard. "Your dad said you didn't want help, that you were being independent." My chest tightened. I asked him for a job lead once. He told me, and I quote, "Start with flipping burgers. It builds character." Grandpa's gaze dropped. He said you were ungrateful. That you moved into your dream place without even a thank you. A sharp laugh slipped out. I didn't know there was anything to thank him for. He rubbed his face, exhaling heavily. I trusted him. I didn't respond. The silence stretched, but I let it linger. Then he said something unexpected. "I'm going to fix this." I crossed my arms. "How?" "I want to see where you live." My head jerked up. "Why?" "Because if it's as bad as you say, and I believe you, then he stole from us both. And I'm done with lies." That night, I drove Grandpa to my place. He was quiet as I guided him down the cracked steps to the basement door. The dim bulb flickered as I unlocked it. The smell of stale smoke and damp hit us. I stepped aside. "Welcome to my castle." He walked in, scanning the worn couch, the wobbly bookcase, the stained ceiling, the small bed shoved against the washing machine. His expression didn't shift for a long moment. Then he sat on my bed's edge and let out the heaviest sigh I'd ever heard. "This is where you've been living?" I nodded. "Since college." His eyes glistened. He said he was saving the rest for your wedding. I thought it made sense. "There is no rest," I said flatly. "You gave him $70,000. It vanished the second it hit his account." Grandpa stared at the floor, then back at me. "Not anymore." He stood. "Tomorrow we're going to the bank, and the lawyer. After that, your dad and I are having a long talk." I didn't smile, but something inside me stirred. A shift, like I'd finally shattered the lens everyone else saw me through. The next morning, I woke to the smell of scorched coffee and Grandpa on the phone with his lawyer. "I don't care if it's Sunday, Howard. Dig up the paperwork. I want every transaction traced, every dollar. And draft a letter stating Daniel Whitmore no longer handles my finances in any way." His tone was ice cold. A tone I'd never heard, not even when Dad totaled his truck in high school or when Mom forgot his meds once. This was different. I stood in the hallway, barefoot on the chilly concrete, listening quietly. Something buried deep inside me, something long ignored, felt visible. By noon, we were in a sleek, wood-paneled office downtown. Grandpa had pulled favors for an urgent meeting. The banker, a polished woman in her 50s, clicked through records, her lips pursed. "I see the transfer here," she said, adjusting her glasses. "From Mr. Whitmore's account to Daniel Whitmore, your son, labeled as a gift for Kayla's condo." She turned the screen toward us. The date was there. The exact amount. Everything Grandpa said was true. Then she clicked again. My stomach dropped. It showed another transfer 5 days later where Dad moved the full sum to an investment account in his name. No mention of me, no note, nothing. My hands balled into fists in my lap. Grandpa stared at the screen, then asked calmly, "Can I get a hard copy of that?" "Yes, sir." When she stepped away, he turned to me. "He betrayed you. And he lied to me. This isn't just family drama, Kayla, it's theft." I nodded slowly. "Don't worry," he added. "I'll handle it." But I shook my head. "No," I said softly, "we'll handle it." That afternoon, we drove to my parents' house. I hadn't been there in years. The same house where I used to frost cupcakes with Mom. Where Dad once taught me to ride a bike before he stopped answering my calls. Where my sister threw a party the week I moved out and left my stuff on the curb. Grandpa rang the doorbell. Dad answered, half confused, half irritated. His eyes widened when he saw us both. "We need to talk," Grandpa said, his voice steady. "I'm kinda busy. Sit down." Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Mom lingered in the background, brow creased. My sister peeked from the stairs, sensing drama like a hawk. We gathered in the living room. Grandpa set a thick folder on the coffee table. Dad didn't glance at it. Then Grandpa dropped the bomb. "You told me Kayla was living in that condo I bought her. But the money never got there. You took it. You stole it. And you lied to your daughter and me?" Dad gave a nervous laugh. "Come on, Dad, you're making this bigger than she's been living in a basement," Grandpa cut in. "Eating on the floor, working 2 jobs, while you used her money to boost your investments. I was holding it for her future." "Don't." My voice sliced through. "Stop lying. You called me lazy, entitled, said I didn't deserve help. Meanwhile, you were living off the money meant to give me a shot." Dad's jaw tightened. Grandpa opened the folder and slid the papers toward him. "I've already talked to Howard. We'll pursue legal action if needed. But you're paying back every penny. And you'll explain yourself to the family at the next brunch. No more secrets. No more acting like a noble dad." Mom whispered, "Daniel, tell me this isn't true." He said nothing. Silence. Then Grandpa turned to me. "You're moving in with me next week. I've already called the realtor. We'll find you a real place to live." I looked at Dad one last time. He couldn't meet my gaze. The man who once said, "You'll never make it without me," looked small now, shrinking under the weight of truth. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free, and that was better. The next Sunday, brunch was at the same restaurant, same table, same faces, but everything was different. I wasn't tucked at the end anymore, wedged between an ice bucket and a mismatched chair. I sat beside Grandpa at the head. His hand rested lightly on mine as we waited for everyone to arrive. When Dad walked in, he looked like he'd aged a decade in a week. The usual fake charm was gone. Mom stayed close, her lips tight. My sister wore sunglasses inside, like she didn't want to see what was coming. Grandpa stood before anyone could pretend this was a normal Sunday. "I'll keep this brief," he said, his voice clear and loud enough to hush the room. "I called you all here because last week I learned a grave wrong was done in my name. 4 years ago, I sent money, my own savings, to help Kayla start her life. I was told she got it. I was told she was thriving." He turned slightly toward me. "That was a lie." The room froze. A server paused mid-pour. I looked up, feeling the sting behind my eyes, but I held it back. This wasn't about tears. "Not anymore," Grandpa went on. "Daniel took that money. He invested it, hid it, and let his daughter struggle in silence, making her feel worthless, lazy, dependent, all while posing as a responsible father." Murmurs rippled through the family. My aunt gasped. My cousin blinked, piecing it together. Dad squirmed in his seat. Grandpa faced him fully now. "You betrayed us both, and from this moment you're cut off from my estate. Every asset, every trust, every future deal, it's all being reworked. You've lost that right. Then slowly, Grandpa pulled a folded paper from his jacket and set it down gently. "Read this," out loud. Dad stared at the paper like it was venom. Grandpa's voice sharpened. Now, his hands trembled as he unfolded it. His voice cracked with every line. "To my family, I stole from my daughter, Kayla Whitmore. I took funds meant for her future and lied about their purpose. I have wronged her, my father, and the integrity of this family. I take full responsibility and will repay the full amount within 6 months. I am deeply sorry." When he finished, there was only silence. No applause, no gasps, just a heavy shared breath. For the first time in years, I looked at my father and didn't feel small. I felt seen. That night back at Grandpa's house, I stood on the porch with him under the stars. "I can't believe you never asked for anything," he said. "I was done asking," I replied quietly. He nodded. "I'm sorry I didn't check sooner." "I'm not," I said after a pause, "because now I know who's really got my back." He gave a faint smile. "You're not going back to that basement. I know, I found you a place," he added. "Downtown, hardwood floors, big windows," I laughed softly. "Sounds like a palace already. You deserve it." Maybe I did. But more than anything, I deserved to stop scraping for crumbs. The new condo had tall windows. The first morning there, sunlight poured in like it had been waiting for me. No landlady yelling at her dog through the walls. No pipes rattling by my head. Just quiet, peace. I sat on the edge of my new bed, a real bed, not a thrift store futon, and stared at the city skyline. I wasn't used to seeing the sky like this. I wasn't used to feeling safe. That day, I dug up something I'd buried years ago. I opened my laptop, brushed off the folder hidden behind job applications and bills. The folder labeled Designs. Inside were the sketches and layouts I once dreamed would become my career, before the world convinced me survival trumped passion. Before Dad glanced at my portfolio and said, "It's cute, but when are you getting serious?" Now I got serious. I applied to design firms, freelance platforms. I even launched a small online portfolio. I used the money Grandpa gave me not just to get by, but to begin. Weeks passed, then months. One afternoon, my phone rang. A local architecture firm had seen my work. They were starting a community housing project and needed someone who could think outside the box, someone who knew how to maximize small spaces. I smiled. "I've lived that," I told them. When I walked into their downtown office for the first time, I wore the same beige coat Mom once called cheap and childish. The receptionist offered me water. The creative director offered me a chair. By the end of the meeting, I had a contract in hand. It wasn't just a job, it was proof. Proof I was never the failure they made me out to be. That living in a basement didn't mean I belonged beneath anyone. Months later, I hosted brunch. Not in a restaurant, not in someone else's house. Mine, real plates, real laughter, real sunlight streaming through the windows. Grandpa brought flowers and placed them in the vase I bought with my first paycheck. My cousin, who used to roll her eyes when I talked about my art, leaned in, asking about color schemes and inspiration boards. Dad wasn't there. He hadn't been back since the day of the letter. He repaid the money. On time, but the apologies stayed on paper. That was fine. Some people's absence is the greatest gift of all. As I passed around a tray of fresh scones, I caught Grandpa watching me with a gentle smile. "This," he said, "this is what I pictured." I touched his hand. "Me too."